Welcome to the Kyero.com Spanish Property Podcast, where we interview people who recently bought their dream home in Spain. They tell us what worked, what didn't, and what they'd do differently next time. I'm Beth Davison, and this week I'm talking with Julie from Gateshead. She purchased her dream home in Alicante, along with her husband, Greg. Whether you call it luck or fate, just wait until you hear about how their dream property came from a single meeting with strangers. Check out the show notes at kyero.com/podcast to find links and resources mentioned in this episode.
I'm Julie. I have recently sort of retired. I'm not sure if I'm going to stay retired. I took early retirement. And then my husband, Greg.
I'm Greg, and I'm a delivery driver.
And he's not retired. So basically what happened was I got the opportunity to take early retirement, which I did, which enabled us to pay off our mortgage on the house. And we decided that we had a large 4-bedroom detached house in England. It was far too big for us. So we decided to sell that, downsize in England, and buy a property in Spain.
And was Spain always the idea? Has this always been a kind of dream idea in the back of your mind?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, we've looked at other countries, but we always came back to Spain.
And why was that? What was it that appealed?
Well, a friend of ours had bought an apartment there, must have been 3-4 years ago now. And we had gone there on our holidays and stayed. So we kind of knew the area. We'd met quite a few people there. And we just liked the way of life and the weather.
Of course, the weather's always the one, isn't it? That's the thing that most people tell me that kind of draws them over there in the first place. And so when you say you knew the area, you knew Spain in general, or there was a specific area that you had your heart set on?
It was a specific area. So, Costa Blanca and specifically the Orihuela Costa.
Lovely. And so how often had you been there before you started looking at properties?
Oh, a good half a dozen times.
Lovely. And how did the search first start for you? Was it just you were wandering around while you were there and something caught your eye, or you began the search while you were in Britain? Talk me through it from the beginning.
Okay, well, what happened was once we found out that I had the opportunity to do this retirement, then not long after we found that out, we were at our friend's apartment, and she had an apartment in a place called Los Dolses, and a property 2 doors down from her went on the market, and nobody had lived in this house, and we'd always kind of looked at it and gone, what a shame. Anyway, when it went on the market, we went to have a look at it and absolutely fell in love with it. But my retirement hadn't gone through at that point, and our house wasn't on the market. So whilst we loved it, we didn't do much more about it. And then when we came home, we found out that A Place in the Sun was doing an exhibition in Glasgow. So we decided to go there, which we did, and met a lady called Bex from Home España, who was absolutely superb, so helpful, that we chatted to her and she talked about different sort of areas within the Orihuela Costa. You know, do you want to go inland, a bit more Spanish? Do you want to stay on the coast where it's a bit more British? And we kind of realised we didn't really know what we wanted. So on the back of that, once the retirement did happen, we decided to go over there, and we spent, the best part of 6 weeks. So we went in the January for 6 weeks, as Greg says, following Beck's advice, and looked at all different areas. We went out with Home España to have a look at properties, but we'd only really seen maybe about a dozen properties, something like that, when we found this one. And this one was sort of with Home España and sort of ourselves, because we're literally walking around the area and the mostly gated communities, and there was an apartment up for sale. And as luck would have it, the owners were on the balcony, so we just got chatting to them, and their property had been sold the day before. So we asked, was there anything else in that community available? And they just let us in to have a wander around, and we saw this house. which was exactly the same as the one that would see next door but one to my friends. But it was a much better situated, as in it was in the middle of the community. We had a pool out front, we had a pool out the back, and we just sort of said, this is it. So,
it seems like so many bits fell into place for this to happen then. People just sitting on their balcony that you chatted to. Do you believe in fate at all? Did this feel a little bit fated?
Absolutely, totally. I'm a huge believer in fate.
Well, no wonder. I can see why.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so there was, actually it was another estate agent's board that was outside this property. Can't even remember which estate agent it was. And I contacted them with a view to going to have a look. And I got an email back saying the lady was in America.
Right.
And so she couldn't show us around until, I think it was about a week and a half later. Anyway, then we'd gone back to Home España. Again, we spoke to Bex. We told her about this property. And on the day that she'd arranged for someone from there to drive us around various areas, she looked on her system and said, oh, it looks like this house has just come on our books.
Wow.
Even more fate.
Yeah, totally. It really is. But it sounds like Bex was super helpful. So you obviously had an agent that you connected with quite early on.
Completely.
That's fantastic. And I think it's important when you can do face-to-face interactions with agents. That's how you build trust. It's great kind of making the connection online, but it's actually these face-to-face moments that make all the difference, right?
We met Bex in Glasgow, and then we told her we were thinking about coming out the following year for a period of time. But when we told her that, she said, well, when you come over, just pop in the office and see me. She was lovely again. She told us about different areas, gave us maps and that, and we told her like what sort of things we liked and that. And then she sent us out with, what was his name?
David,
who he said, I was going to show you around a few different areas today, but we might go see a couple of properties. But he knew full well he was going to go and show us what we wanted.
Yeah.
He drove us around a little while and said, we'll just stop here and have a look at this place. And when we stopped there, we knew straight away what he was going to show us.
Which is great, though. That's what you want, is when you're being shown what you want to see and not being on these kind of grand tours where you're looking at 5 different properties that just don't appeal.
Yeah. I mean, they showed us the property, and they were showing somebody else the property later on that day, and then somebody else the following day. So when we went back to the office, we weren't in a position to buy at the time. Unfortunately, my dad, who's been retired a while, I phoned him up and he said, I said to him, is there any chance of a bridging loan until the property sells? Because we found the house we wanted. He said, yeah, we can do that. So we walked straight back to the office and put the offer in.
Oh, parents are good, aren't they?
Amazing, aren't they?
That's what you need. So when you were thinking that you were going to downsize from your kind of larger property in the UK, did that stay as the plan? Or did you find you could get more for your money in Spain? Or did you have a key idea of how many bedrooms you wanted?
We loved the property that we saw in the past, but the problem was behind it was like a car park and it was on a hill. So like you got out the back door, there's like a 40-foot wall. Right. Whereas this property we've bought is the same property, but out the back there's a pool and out the front there's a pool.
Lovely.
So we knew we wanted something just that we could live with for now in the UK, but the majority of the money was going to go in Spain, but that's what we did.
We did downsize here. We have bought a 2-bed semi over here, but with a view to that sort of shorter term living in there for long periods, because hopefully over the next sort of 4 or 5 years, then Greg will take early retirement and we'll spend more and more time in Spain. But we were conscious that we always wanted to keep a foot in the ladder over here.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Just in case you ever want to come back. Presumably there's family over here, is there?
Absolutely, yeah. And, we met in the travels that we've done over in Spain, we've met a number of people who have made the move permanently over there. And one guy in particular, he was only there a year and then he lost his wife. And he told us that at that time, not so much now, but at that time, he would have definitely have gone home.
Yeah.
But he couldn't afford to get another property because he'd sold his and he couldn't get back on it.
No, it's fair enough. I can see why people sort of just want to keep a foot in each camp.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it feels like a much bigger move, which some people that I've spoken to have done, but others I can fully see wanting to stay a little bit in England. What about the process then? If we talk about kind of the legalities and all of the hurdles that you face in the UK when you buy property, did you find it the same in Spain?
No, it was completely different in Spain. But again, through going to the Place in the Sun exhibition, we met some English-speaking lawyers, and they were recommended to us through Home España by Bex, and she introduced us in Glasgow to these people, and they were absolutely fantastic. It's a firm called Sun Lawyers. It's a small family, well, I don't know how small it is, but it's a family firm, and they pretty much did everything for us, because you have to be set up with what's called an NIE number, which I guess is the equivalent to our national insurance number.
Yeah.
Without that, you can't do anything. You can't buy a house, you can't buy a car, you can't buy anything. And it's a fairly long-winded process if you do it yourself, as we understand it.
Right.
But for a small fee, these lawyers did everything for us. So they did all of the Spanish legalities, they set up bank accounts, they arranged so when the property was purchased to have all of the utilities switched into our name and standing orders set up and that type of thing. Because we weren't getting a mortgage, so the banks wouldn't do any checks. So our lawyers did. And the way it works in Spain is if there's any outstanding fees for example, community fees or electricity or any debt, because it's attached to the property, not the person.
Right, okay.
So they checked all of that out for us. And
presumably these are things that you hadn't necessarily thought of. How much of this did you know about already going in? Had you done your research, or were you completely sort of trusting?
We knew a fair bit about it because a friend of ours had bought a property over there.
Right.
But even that, it's like opening a bank account. They did all the groundwork, and then we just went and popped into the bank. We were there for an hour and a half,
Great.
And that was all done. Where friends of ours in the past had gone and set up their own bank accounts, and they were there in the bank for the whole day.
Yeah,
it just made everything a lot easier.
And how is your Spanish?
Very, very little Spanish.
Okay, but you haven't felt that that's held you back at all, presumably because these lawyers are bilingual.
The notes we said was translated to us in English, and everything that we said was translated into Spanish by the translator.
So there was no point where you felt sort of out of your depth or left by yourselves, which is great.
No.
Not remotely. We did do a lot of research, and we did have our friends' experience to back us up, coupled with the fact that we knew quite a few people there already. The whole process for us personally was really smooth.
Was there any part of it that was challenging? I was going to say what was the most difficult, but it sounds like you might have had a very smooth run.
I think the only thing, and this again, it's a personal thing, was because when we saw this house and knew we wanted it, we hadn't yet sold ours in the UK. So what happened was, again, Home España arranged all of this. They negotiated that instead of going through the buying process, which would normally take around about 6 to 8 weeks in Spain, they got us an extension. So we put the offer in February, and they got us an extension to complete until August, in fact, it was.
Wow.
6 months.
Yeah, which was excellent. You pay more of a deposit, and obviously if you pull out of that, then you lose a deposit. So what happens is anybody who buys a property in Spain, as soon as you put the offer in, you have to put down €2,500. And if you then pull out of the offer, you lose it. If the buyer pulls out the offer, then they have to give you your €2,500 back, and they then have to give you €2,500.
Oh, wow, really? So it's much more of a binding contract then, an agreement, than it is in England. I assume it means that less purchases fall through from people just having a change of heart.
Yeah, because as soon as you put that €2,500 down, then the Spanish law says they cannot show it to anyone else.
Yeah, so things don't get thieved out from under you or anything like that.
Yeah. And then after 6 weeks, we had to put another 18.
And then we had to make it up to 10% deposit. So we paid 16,000 on top of the 2.5 because we'd had an extended completion date.
Same rules apply then. If we pulled out, we lost the whole lot.
Wow, okay.
And if the sellers pulled out, they had to give us that money. Well, they didn't have that money, the lawyers held that money, but they had to give us the same amount of money in compensation.
Wow, that's such an interesting law that I didn't know about. So this brings me nicely to budget. Did you know exactly how much you wanted to spend? How well did you stick to it? Do you mind me asking what you did spend in the end?
We paid €160,000.
And we had a budget of 150.
We had a budget of £150,000.
Oh, okay, that's not bad then.
So it wasn't a million miles away. I mean, once we'd gone in there, of course, like most people, you decide we want this change and we want that change. So we did go over budget a little bit, but it wasn't by a huge amount. It was probably maybe £5,000, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greg, what did your dad say when has he seen it?
Yeah, he came over in January before we bought it. When we saw it, he was due to come out, and then he came in and had a look around and he loved it.
Oh, good. So his loan was going towards a good purchase.
Well, we didn't need it in the end.
Oh, brilliant!
We didn't need the loan in it because we came back and our house was sold. We sold our house almost immediately when we came back, so I didn't have to get a loan off my dad. But he said it was there if we. Because basically we just put it into place. So if he said we wanted to buy the place, if in 6 months' time the house hadn't sold,
absolutely,
then I could have borrowed the money off him. But the option was there because otherwise we would have, if we put the offer in and then hadn't sold our house and didn't have a backup plan, then we would have lost our £18,000.
Totally.
Deposit.
And being quite au fait with the property market in both countries then, how do you feel value compares in Spain to what you could have got in England for 160?
Massive, much better value for money.
So much better. You get a lot more for your money.
And do you mean more as in spatially, like the places are larger, or do you mean more in location? How do you mean?
Both, to be honest.
Location, everything really.
So what we bought for €160,000, which because of the exchange rate, I think came in at 148, something like that, £1,000.
Right.
We got a 3-bedroom, what they call a townhouse. So there's an upstairs, downstairs, 2 bathrooms, very large rooms, really large, spacious rooms. There's 4. There's a solarium and 3 large patios, and the use of 3 communal swimming pools.
Yeah, amazing.
So, you know,
amazing.
You wouldn't get that over here, would you?
No, totally. And what's your favourite part about living in Spain? What's your favourite way of life over there?
I haven't got one yet because I'm too busy decorating and cleaning at the minute.
Bless you guys. Yeah, okay, it's been a busy one.
Yeah. So when we had this offer extended for completion until August, because our house sold immediately, we obviously didn't need that. So we put the offer in probably the first or second week in February, and we completed at the end of April.
Wow. Okay, yes, so it is all really new. I thought you meant August of last year. I'm sorry, I wasn't keeping up. Yes, okay, so this is all really new for you.
Really new. So we've actually only been there. Was it you called us last week or one of your colleagues?
Yeah. No, it was me.
It was you. Well, that was our first time that would actually been to the house.
Wow. How did it feel walking in and it being yours?
It was dirty.
It was dirty.
The house itself had been empty for quite some time, and actually this was the most challenging part. It's nothing to do with buying as such, but I'd arranged for a company to go in and do a deep clean, and when we got there, they hadn't been.
Oh no! Okay.
Well, they had been, but they hadn't done.
They hadn't done what we wanted. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So that was really tough. So we spent the first week just literally cleaning everything. Absolutely everything. And then the nice part started the nice part for my mum and I, because we were both there, we went and did all the shopping.
Very good. Great. Are you furnishing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, big shops happening then.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they say whenever you buy a house in Spain, it's sold as seen, and some will be fully furnished, others will be partially furnished. I would say that ours was classified as partially furnished, but there was very little in there that we could keep. Yeah,
right. Okay.
Yeah. So we pretty much started from scratch.
And how do you foresee the future going then with this property? When are you next heading over there, and how often, and what kind of holidays are you going to bring the family with you?
Well, I'm going. In fact, my cousin goes tomorrow. They're going to use it for 10 days. And then I go back out there the middle of September, and I'm going with my other cousin, and then she goes home and my mum comes out. So that's just me in September. So I'm going to be there about 3 weeks. And then the 2 of us are going with friends in October for a couple of weeks. and we've booked to go at Christmas, but we're not sure if that's going to materialise just yet because of Greg's just got a new job.
Right.
So the jury's out on that one. But the way that we're planning to use it is we're not renting it out at all. We are allowing family and very close friends to use it. But I am expecting to be there at least 4 times a year, with Greg being there at least 2 times a year for the next sort of 3-4 years.
Lovely.
And then after that, once Greg does retire, then we're planning to spend, 7, 8, 9 months of the year there and the rest here.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like you're going to be the favourite member of the family if you're bringing everyone over for different holidays. But I'm so glad that it's all worked out so well for you. It sounds like it's been a really positive experience.
Thank you. And it really, really has. It really has.
Perfect. And there's some great advice in here as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me today.
Oh, you're very welcome. And if there's anything ever that you need again, by all means, give me a call.
Brilliant. Thank you. And enjoy your next trip out there. I'm sure it's going to be amazing with less cleaning.
Yes, that's all done now, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. All right. Have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot for the call. Bye.
Thank you for listening. And thanks to Julie for sharing her experiences. I particularly like the idea of an early retirement opening up options of spending even more time in Spain, and how for them downsizing in the UK really worked when it came to investing in property in Spain. If you like what you've heard, you can search this agent's properties and more on Kyero.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. This podcast is produced by Kyero.com. Our mission is to connect you with estate agents and properties throughout Spain. Whether your dream home is a rustic farmhouse surrounded by olive groves or a lock-up-and-leave apartment on the seafront, you'll find everything you need at Kyero.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate your 5-star rating on iTunes. It helps us reach and connect more people with their dream home in Spain. And whenever you're ready, here are 4 ways we can help you. Ask a question by emailing beth@Kyero.com. We'll try and answer them all in an upcoming Q&A episode. Get a location guide by emailing beth@Kyero.com. We'll reply with the latest data and information on the areas you're interested in. Calculate your budget. Simply visit Kyero.com/budget, enter 2 numbers, and you're done. Be our guest. If you've already purchased your home in Spain, we would love for you to share your story on the podcast. Just email beth@Kyero.com and we'll take it from there. Tune in next time when I speak with Linda, a former textile designer from Loughborough. She purchased her new home in Olvera, Cadiz, and this is actually Linda's 2nd property. Because she bought her first place 11 years ago, she's experienced when it comes to buying property in Spain and has some really good insights about the ever-changing property market. I'm Beth Davison, and you've been listening to the Kyero.com Spanish Property Podcast. I'll see you next time.